I didn't test. Test. Alright, looks like we're working. And we're playing Doomtrain. This is for chat tournament number, say, 23. Weirdly, every game except the ones I'm potentially in have been played. My first instinct was if I can stick some big corner in 3, his only way to take is a5, 6-5, and if I can combo that 6, but I don't have play against that 6. That's a bummer. Because I have a whole lot of cards that want to go in 3. Maybe there's some way to set it up more long-term thinking. I'm not really seeing it. I don't have amazing ways to recapture. I also I don't really have play against the capture with 3A49 there, so. Okay. Where's my cards go? Not sure entirely. Running on low sleep here, but that's okay. We're excited to play triple triad. Let's look at their directional strength. They have an A, then a 7 facing up. That was the first instinct, was try to punish that. I also wish I could play something, 2, 6, 9, 9 in 1. But A5, 6, 5, well, I do have the combo in 7. They have a combo back in 8. So it's nothing. I could potentially recapture from 2 there, but I like having more play against their captures than that offers. Going to the right, they have 2 A's. We have a bunch of A's as well. That's gonna... Not clear who that's gonna favor right now. Going down, he has an 8 and a 6. We have a couple 10s facing up. One potential starter is A3, 9, 4, and 8, but I don't like starters much of that type. But it's worth keeping in mind. They have 9 covered, but they don't have safety in 7. So, might have some promise. We do have decent coverage for both 7 and 9. Not amazing, though. Because if you think about, like, say they played, like, 5, 8, 6, 8, and 9, right? If we take it with 3, 3, 9A, we have a combo in 3, we give up a combo in 5. It's all very messy. Alright, we'll leave that in the back pocket. Going to the left, they have A9, 8. That utterly smashes anything we have going right. Do they have any big corners they'd quite like to do? Nothing looks too scary. A3, 9, 4, and 8 make some sense, but I feel I'll be on the back foot against any capable reply. It just seems like the kind of move where I'll be defending. Like, say they, I don't know. I guess I don't have a particular move for them. Huh. Don't like 7. Don't really like 3. Maybe I should just take a weak corner in 7, actually. I don't like the weak corner in 9. They have it better covered than I do. So maybe a weak corner 7 is the way to go. Which card? The double 3 isn't doing a lot against their hand. I think the double 7 is doing more. And the 2, 6, 9, 6 occasionally flips 6s, both in my hand and theirs. And the 9 plays well. 9s play well against their 10s facing to the right. So maybe 3, 3, 9A? It does feel weird to give up a card that is so close to having safety versus their hand. But just because it has safety doesn't mean it actually sweeps their hand very well. The 10 doesn't really take stuff from them. Maybe we hold on to it in the hopes that we can cover 6 later, and thus play it well in 3. I don't know. Could play A394 there. Just say that's a card I want out of my hand. I can recapture it. You have trouble taking it. It is not trivial for you to set up against it. You know, if you go in 1, the only way you can set up against it is 1-8-8-6, and then I just take from 4, and that seems pretty decent for me. Is there another setup? No, there shouldn't be. Oh, there's stuff with a 6 down. Yeah. That's hard for them to recapture too, though. Yeah, maybe A394. There's no 9s to pick off facing left. Doesn't give up my highest power in any direction. Sure, why not? Let's do it. Might give up a little more up than I want. Not my highest power, but I do have potential weakness in that direction. Threat, I guess, is probably something like Ifrit and 8. Block that square. If they go A5, 6, 5, and 1, they do give up kind of all the ups they have, or most of the ups they have. So like A5, 6, 5, and 1, maybe that's when I could play 3, 3, 9, A, and 3. So it does set them up in 2. I missed that. I was thinking if I pull that card out of their hand, I have my setup, but it actually sets them up too. So A5, 6, 5, and 1 looks like a reasonable move. This will timestamp when I'm recording this, but on a side screen I am watching the basketball. We're in the first round of the playoffs. The Bucks are smashing the Bulls. I dislike both teams, so, you know, rooting for, I don't know, injuries. Not really, but like rooting for it to be a messy series where the advancing team, which will be the Bucks, is exhausted. So kind of rooting for Chicago to make it last as long as they can. Bucks are currently up 24 in Game 4. They will take a 3-1 lead. Then in 10 minutes, Golden State-Denver starts. Golden State's currently up 3-0. We hate Golden State. Horrible team. Really destroyed a lot of my interest in basketball. I realize this may be a contentious topic given an occasional chat topic in the main of chat, but even if you think crypto is like not a terrible thing, you think it's fine, advertising something which people are investing a lot of their money in, and advertising it on the basis of you don't need to know anything, don't be an expert, hashtag not an expert, as Steph Curry's current ads for FTX are, is really despicable behavior. And I think even people that think crypto is not bad or even good should recognize that telling people not to inform themselves before they invest a lot of money in it is really scummy. Now, there's certainly scummy behavior in other ways where people go, you know, do your own research, and what they mean is find these 3 propagandistic websites and read those. But even that might be better than going, don't learn anything, it's fine. Not good. Just a crappy human being. Oh, I should cut off the white at the top. I'm dropping takes today. Alright, hopefully that looks a little nicer. I had to resize because I had done some project where I made it all small. I think the Ace interview, because I just wanted to show a card, so I had to minimize stuff and had to resize it for this video. You don't care. I'm not making much sense. Again, not a lot of sleep. That's okay, though. So, yeah, we hate the Warriors. We love the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is great. We don't love the Nuggets, but we love Nikola Jokic. He's fantastic. Joy to watch. Obviously, their team, Jamal Murray's injury, other stuff, they didn't live up to our hopes and dreams this year. But really enjoy the Nuggets. Happy to root for them every year. Shame they will be maybe getting swept in the first round because Jokic is a joy. And Jokic, honestly, like, I know they won't give it to him again because he won it last year and people felt weird about that. But Jokic has been the best player in the NBA during the regular season for the last 2 years. He deserves another MVP. it's going to go probably to Embiid or Antetokounmpo, which is like, they were probably the second and third best players. Not the end of the world. You know, there are far worse MVPs out there. But I think Jokic was the best player for the second straight year, and by something of a decent margin. I think the best all-in-one stat right now, as in, oh, I should make a move. All right, well, the automatic thing to do, though it does not take, is to go in 8. And then just have a down-facing game where hopefully I sweep. Do they have any setups in 6? If I play an A up in 8, they have no moves in 6 that threaten 5. And that should give me freedom to do what I want. Given that I have a threat in 6, it's hard for them to leave it alone. Though 2 of my cards won't be able to go there because they have a 10 to the left, and that'll set him up for combos. But it feels like if I go 8, he goes 6, I should be able to play probably safely in 3. And then it becomes very tough for him unless he can set up 2 things at once. Oh, obviously he couldn't play A5, 6, 5, and 1. What was I talking about? Because the card that sets up is itself. So that was never a move. So I think I'm just going to play an 8 here. Going back to basketball, because that's what we're here for. EPM is the stat, the all-in-one stat that is doing the best in prediction-based contests. So it is the stat doing the best at evaluating team talent. And based on adding up individual player contributions. And I believe it is also the one that, of publicly available stats, that more, we should just go an 8, right? I should make my move. If I'm just going to babble, I'm just wasting everyone's time, so I should make my move and think. And we'll babble on his time. Okay. Again, he has nothing that threatens 5. That doesn't mean it's like winning for me or anything, but it just means this is kind of like, I get a free attack, right? I get to put pressure on, and he has to find defensive moves. After 6, if I go 3 with a 10 out, he has no move in 1 that sets up both 4 and 2. That's why I noticed A5, 6, 5 set up itself, because I thought maybe he goes 6, I go 3, and then he goes 1, and A5, 6, 5 sets up 7, 5, 5, A for 2, and also I thought of A5, 6, 5 as setting up 4, but it doesn't set up 4 because he can't play it twice. Therefore, we're just going to make our defensive move and get back to EPM. So there was also an interview with a bunch of executives on teams, and I think it's the one they think most highly of too, of the publicly available stats, which is not always super telling, but basketball executives are getting a lot smarter. So it thinks the 10 best players in the NBA this year are, and so again, my argument for this is not that it's perfect, but that of publicly available all-in-one stats, it is doing the best predictions right now. And that is at the team level, but it is an individual level stat. It adds them up and does so well. And also, NBA executives seem to like it more than other stats. So our top 5 players in the top 10 players in the NBA, say, and there's going to be some weird names in there. It looks like it has Rudy Gobert 10th, just ahead of Trae Young and Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul's been better this season, but it thinks Rudy Gobert is and a tie with a bunch of players like Paul George, but basically the best defensive player in the NBA this season. And if you think that, then having him 10th is probably about right. Though it is worth noting, his defense is highly variable based on matchup, right? This is not, Zach LaVine getting in a fight with someone. That's, all right, well, back to EPM, sorry. Again, easily distractible. Gobert's defense against some teams is going to be worth significantly more than that, and against other teams is not going to be worth very much. Oh, it's Bobby Portis Jr. Of course it is. Former Bull. So it's one of those players where that might be his average over the value of a season, but depending on matchup, he can easily be worth a lot more or a lot less than that. In 9th, it is Drew Holiday. That is very high on Drew Holiday. In 8th, it has Jason Tatum. I mean, I come from the Boston area. I'm usually pretty high on Boston guys. I've never loved Tatum so far, but he did have a great season. He is playing great. I'd probably have him a bit lower than this. In 7th, it is Kyrie Irving. This is a limited sample because he didn't play near as many games, and it may be holdovers from priors on previous seasons. I think this is quite high for Kyrie, who started incredibly badly, then had a real hot streak. Now I'm not quite sure where he is. I haven't been paying too much attention, but Kyrie tends to be a pretty overrated player because scoring is an overrated thing. In 6th, we have one of the 2 best players of all time, LeBron James. Still trucking. Almost won the scoring title, though Embiid got it in the end. Lakers sucked, but it wasn't really. So it both is and isn't on him, right? Because, like, he played great. On the court, I think LeBron was remarkable for his age. Just phenomenal. Really impressive. Off the court, it's kind of his fault their team is built so badly. I think LeBron is incredibly intelligent, and there's kind of, it's easy to look at basketball players and go, they're just athletic, but like the angles he sees, the speed at which he can interpret things in real time, like there's obviously genius at work here for a lot of NBA players. And as someone who is good in games like Triple Triad, where I have time to, or chess, where I have time to think out my moves, even at very fast time controls, I'm pretty good at both. I never had the combination of being able to see things in real time athletically and execute on them. The kind of interactive movement of a sport is not something my brain is all that good at, and is something I've had to work at to even get like remotely okay. So like, I'm a very willing passer in basketball, but I don't make good passes. I make obvious, simple passes. And I think that was true when I was playing more soccer as well, and is just generally true of me in athletic things. I tended to be good at pure skills, but not athletic enough to be all that competitive, nor strong enough usually. And I also just wasn't smart enough, I think, to do a lot of sports things at a reasonable level. Anyway, LeBron James is brilliant, but his team building effects have generally been pretty disastrous. Tends to bring on players he likes that are often over the hill or overrated. You know, not a good team builder. In 5th, we have Kevin Durant. Now, I have 2 takes on Kevin Durant's career, that both of which I think are fairly hot takes and sound opposed, but I think they actually go together reasonably. One is, I think he's very much in the conversation for greatest scorer, pure scorer of all time. Now, I think scoring is an overrated talent, which will get us to part 2, but he is an unbelievable scorer. You look at his efficiency, the shots he takes, how much he's scoring on them. Obviously, like Wilt, Kareem, Michael Jordan, those seem like the other guys in the conversation, probably mostly Wilt and Jordan. But I think if you adjust for pace and you compare to efficiency, I think there is a good argument that Kevin Durant is narrowly the greatest scorer of all time. Does that make him as good as Michael Jordan? It doesn't make him remotely close, right? Michael Jordan is doing lots of other valuable things. I'm really not talking much about the game today. That's okay, though. Same time, I think Kevin Durant, at least by the stats people that I tend to read, I think is really historically overrated. I think he's very good. I think he's top 15 all time, top 20 all time. I'm not at all convinced he's better or close to the Larry Birds of the world. And if you're not like reading stats people, you might think that's ridiculous. Of course he's not remotely close. But there's a certain swath where he's kind of in that kind of conversation. And if you start saying he's the best scorer of all time, it sounds like he should be in that conversation. Okay, let's go back to the game for a moment, and then we'll talk through the rest of the list. The obvious move, I think, is 3-3-9A and 3. It is at that point hard for him to do something other than 1A, 8, 6, and 5, but that loses to 2, 6, 9, 9, and 2. Pretty easy to see that it's going to lose because he has no right power, so I have a 6-4 lead and he has no captures. Obviously cannot make the mistake of going 2, 7, 7, A, and 2, because then he would have captures. So much easier to calculate that way. So he has trouble going in 5. If he goes 7-5-5A in 5, I lead 6-4 already, so I can capture that from 2, and even though he has captures back and 1A 8-6 in 1, I can't flip back. I'm up 7-3 at that point. If he goes A5 6-5 in 5, I go in 2 and don't flip it. Ooh, that might be a tie for him. So I go 3. He goes A5 6-5 and 5. I'm up 6-4, but he has a really significant threat in 2. No, it all works out. I'm very lucky there. Because I can play a 2-7-7A and 2. I walk into the combo with A5 6-5, but if it goes in 1, it just sorry, 2-7-5-5A goes in 4, but it gives me a plus in 1 at the end. So I think this should just win. He can also play 1A 8-6 in 1. That sets up 2 threats at once. I had checked for that earlier and somehow didn't see this one, but he does have the move in 1. All right, so we go 3-3-9A in 3. He goes 1A 8-6 in 1. I will be up 6-4. Say I go 2-6-9-6 in 2. I will still be up 6-4. If they go in 5, they can only capture one thing at a time, and my 2-7-7A covers them. So they must go in 4, and my 2-7-7A covers that as well. So I think I survive 1. If he goes 6, I just block 5. If he goes 2, block 5 with the 9 facing out. Yeah, I think this works. Okay, back to what we came here for, the basketball. So my first hot take, Kevin Durant, quite possibly the greatest scorer of all time. My second take, Kevin Durant, significantly overrated in some circles. One thing is, so I used to be pretty skeptical of plus-minus based stats, and I still think there's a significant drawback that you can't figure out what's going on underneath the surface. You can make guesses, but you don't know. You can say, all right, I think this is what the player is doing on defense that's so valuable, but you don't know for sure, and people who claim they do are misusing the stat. It does not tell you how they are achieving it. Now, that means scouting is really valuable. There are, things that aren't stat-based that are incredibly valuable. But one of the nice things about box score stats is I can tell you, yeah, this is how much I'm valuing your score. This is how much I'm valuing other things. So the interesting thing about Durant is the plus-minus stats, which have proved better at predicting results than the box score stats, which I prefer because I think the box score are more informative, but the plus-minus have outperformed them as a predicting metric. Kevin Durant, when he won his MVP, it had him top 2 or 3, maybe it had him top 1. But in general, the plus-minus numbers have not loved Durant. He is often borderline top 10 in the league or lower. Here, he's up to 5th. He's having a nice year. But they tend to suggest Kevin Durant is not as good as he appears to be. And another thing that goes along with that is it's really interesting when top players switch teams and you see the impacts on their new teams. And I was always really high on Chris Paul, but it is telling... Do we have a move? We do not. It is telling that when Chris Paul went to Houston, they became an all-time great team, right? We have evidence like that. When Durant has moved teams, the results haven't changed much. Now, first of all, when he was a rookie, I think he was overrated for a few years, more overrated. He could score, but he was playing bad defense. There was a thing, his pick-and-roll defense was terrible. It got a lot better. There was an article written about it, and then he adjusted and got way better at pick-and-roll defense. Later, weirdly, he started insulting blog boys, but the reason he got better at pick-and-roll defense was criticism from a blog, and he became a much better player due to it. So, Kevin Durant is an idiot. But I think he doesn't come into the team and make an impact on the team, which helps them draft Westbrook and Harden. I forget the order of the drafts, but it helps that the older ones took a couple years to get good because it let them be bad a few years longer. And that let them get more draft picks, and then they all got really good, and the team was great. So then he's on Oklahoma City for a while, when he misses time, they do perform a little worse, though not enormously worse. And I tend to think Westbrook also quite overrated, but one thing that's made me have a little pause on that historically, obviously this year it was garbage, but a little pause on that historically is that the Thunder weren't that much worse when Durant was hurt. They had a lot of injury problems that tended to be what derailed them in the playoffs. One or the other of those two would be injured. Then they got rid of Harden, and that was a pretty big drawback too. But when Durant left, OKC didn't drop off a ton. Like, they won fewer games the next season, but not that much fewer. And he went to Golden State. Now, obviously, Golden State set the high mark in wins the year before with 73, but they won fewer games with him. And then they won fewer games the year after that, right? Every year of the Kevin Durant era, they won fewer games than the previous one. Now, again, they started at this incredible high point, and they did win the championship that year, kind of in a walk. So, like, it's not clear that he hurt the team, but they were favorites to win the championship with or without him by a huge margin, given the year they just had and how weird the 2016 season was. He leaves Golden State, and they do collapse after that. But he comes to Brooklyn, and their record doesn't improve that much. I guess my point is, like, you look at when LeBron leaves teams, and they go from, like, 56 wins to, like, 20 the next year. And you look at when he joins teams, and usually he joins teams with other players joining at the same time. It's not all a single effect. But you see these incredible jumps where, like, LeBron moving teams swings one team 40 wins worse and another 30 wins better. You know, or 10 or 15 or 20 wins better. And you see pretty big swings with Chris Paul, even when he came to an already good Rockets team that had recently made a conference finals. You know, and Kevin Garnett, obviously, huge swing coming to Boston, though that came with Ray Allen as well. All right, we do see 1-8-6 in 1, which I thought was the most promising move. My idea here was 2-6, 9-9, and 2. If he goes in 5 and doesn't take, we're up 6-4, we win. If he goes in 5 and does take, we have a capture back, so we win. And if he goes in 4, he must capture, and he's vulnerable to our 2-7-7-9. So I think we go 2-6, 9-9, and 2, and we're on the board. So I think it's interesting that the plus-minus numbers never think Durant has quite that, like, top-tier level impact, or very rarely, only a couple years of his career. And if you just look at him moving around teams, like, he doesn't look like a Shaq or a LeBron or a Chris Paul or a Kevin Garnett. There are a whole bunch of players. In fact, I looked at like 10 or 15 big names that had moved around at one point, and he was one of the worst couple for impact on changing teams. There were, of course, specific circumstances. There always are. But my instinct is Kevin Durant is overrated. Now, I think most people have him as the second or third best player of the era, ahead or behind of Curry and behind LeBron. I think there's a pretty huge gap behind LeBron. A lot of people agree with that part. But I think Chris Paul has actually had a better career. No one agrees with me. It's fine. I should have the game up so I can post it. I need to have it up on my other screen. Then in 4th, we have Curry, who I thought was going to be the best in the NBA this year. That was my prediction. I was wrong there. Happy to be wrong. Obviously, do not like Curry because we're given all the takes today. And all right, he posted the move order below. That's very helpful. I don't have to think. 7, 9, 8, 6, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5. I win. Already got the random. This random was not great. All right, let's finish up what we were talking about. Feel free to close off the video. In 4th, we have Curry, who I did pick as my pick for best player in the NBA. He had the worst bad shooting streak of his career and still was pretty excellent. It's very annoying how good Curry is. In 3rd, very slightly ahead by this stat, we have Giannis. Giannis's like 5-year run at this point is just nuts, like kind of game breaking. it's weird. There was the Miami wall strategy, right? Of just like form a wall in front of Giannis. That because he is such a bad outside shooter, and that's such an integral skill at this point in the NBA, that it's so weird that he has such a big weakness. He's not even a particularly good free throw shooter, though I think he's been better. He's at 72%. But that's like 30th percentile in the league. Like, he's bad at free throws. You know, he's a terrible three-point shooter. He's just so good at getting to the rim and doing destructive things. He's so big. He's good defensively. He's a good rebounder. He's a good and willing passer. And he's just so good at getting to the rim, either him getting to the rim or creating opportunities at the rim. And that's just kind of the most valuable single thing you can create. So, pretty incredible player. Not a fan of him either, but less disliked than some others. Then in second, we have Joel Embiid, who I find pretty funny. Kind of clear second place, well behind first place, but a decent margin ahead of third and fourth. Joel Embiid had a phenomenal season. He's a great player. Philly's so weird, though, right? Like, this team had, Ben Simmons not playing. They had the whole mess with that. And that was just very strange, weird stuff where, like, basically this player who was supposed to be a star and won Rookie of the Year is so bad in the playoffs that when he's open under the basket, refuses to dunk it and just passes it out. He's just open. He has the ball. He's under the basket. No one's there. He could jump up and dunk it. He's a big guy. Has the yips. Doesn't do it. And, like, obviously a lot of times psychological analysis of sports, like, is really suspicious and also really overrates the impact of the psychological stuff when most of it is, like, random variation. But this was clear and this was weird. And then he said, I refuse to play for the team ever again. The experience of me being terrible was so bad for me, and the fans now hate me so much, I will never play for this team again. And the team went, okay, who's interested in trading really good players for them? And every team was like, we're not giving up really good players for a player who's refusing to play, who now has a history of refusing to play, refusing to take open dunks under the basket in the playoffs, and is clearly this messy, weird player. Quickly on Ben Simmons, he is basically very good at everything except shooting and scoring, which he cannot do at all. And while scoring is an overrated skill, that is a really bad thing to be missing out on. So they hold on to him. And, let's see if there's a game to watch while we're here. Nah, shame. They hold on to him and are looking for a trade, and it just seems ridiculous. How are they going to get a trade? And then suddenly they trade him for James Harden, who probably from like 2013 to 2019 or 2014 to 2020, if you just take regular season performance, is probably on average the best player in the league. He's not the best player in the league that many individual of those years. Usually it's like LeBron or Curry. But I think over that stretch, he's probably the best regular season player. He has weird drop-offs in the playoffs. He does do weird things. And, there's reasons to be skeptical there. But I think overall, underrated contender for actually player of the 2010s. At the same time, he's now forced his way out of two teams in a row. But somehow Ben Simmons gets traded for James Harden, actual superstar. And Philly, the first three games with James Harden looks amazing. Now, they trash weak competition. Then as soon as they face anyone good, James Harden has a terrible game and starts playing pretty badly for the rest of the season. And somehow the team ends up looking weirder while integrating him than they looked before. And Philly has somehow been this huge mess of a team, weird mess, that was great because Embiid was awesome. Then finally made the trade that should push them over the top, and then was even weirder. But Embiid was still awesome enough for them to get, like, the 4 seed, and in the East, but still. And Embiid, I think, was the second best player, give or take, in the league. And then clear number one, as much ahead of Embiid is ahead of Durant, so as much ahead of second is ahead of fifth, and as much ahead of fifth is ahead of 11th. Joel Embiid was awesome. He's just very efficient scorer. Not a great three-point shooter, but enough to keep defenses honest. And this wonderful passer. I think the most enjoyable passer in the NBA right now. Passing is easily my favorite skill to watch. it is the thing I look at players do. And as I said, I think there's real brilliance here. And it's the thing people find passes that I'm not seeing when I have a bird's eye view. And that's so cool when players can do that and hit these angles that I don't see exist. And I put some effort into trying to be able to see the angles, and they're doing it in real time with this limited perspective. And I think that's so cool to watch. And it's why, like, in soccer, my favorite player for a while was Xavi. Now it's Arjen Robben, which is a whole different thing. I just think he's very funny. Or one of my favorite players was Xavi on Barcelona. Not that, I mean, Xavi made a lot of safe passes. He was not always cutting teams open. But the wonderful passing players have always been the ones that blew my mind most in sports, and I thought did the coolest thing. And so Jokic is, I think, incredibly valuable, but also does really well the most fun thing for me to watch. And so I think it's a bummer that Nikola Jokic will not win his second MVP. I think he is deserving and just a joy as a player. And the Golden State-Denver game just started, so go Denver. Hopefully they can win one. It's pretty depressing to get swept. Golden State takes a 2-0 lead. I think we'll call it a video. Hopefully you enjoyed my sports hot taking, and I played a decent game, I think. So, yeah.